All right. Hey, welcome. Good evening, good morning, good day. Today, we are diving into the illusion of separation, consciousness healing, and the power of self. We have having some slight technical difficulties, and so our guest should be on shortly. But I figured let me just jump on here and we could, speak and do all of our cordialities. Is that a word? Before we get started. So hey, actor to artist, um, perfectly not of this world. Hey, Lotus Mindset 88. Hey, the Path of Cinnamon 5688. Smiling Happily. Oh, look at everybody's on tonight. Oh, thank you. Smiling Happily 6190 says she enjoyed the Egg Bay workshop. Thank you. Thank you very much. Had a pleasure doing it. So tonight, we have a special guest, Dr. Kamau Kokayi. Hey, Divinely Sarah. Sarah, can you send me another email? I literally thought about you today and was like, I need to follow up. But then I don't do it if I don't think about it in that moment. So send me an email. All right. All right. So let's hop in. So welcome back to Soul Aligned Living. I am Dr. Toya Davis, spiritual teacher, oracle, and founder of Chi Healing Institute. And tonight we are diving into a territory that I know many of you have been dealing with, struggling with. I get it in the clients that I get, right? People want to come and they ask things about health. And I'm like, I'm not a doctor, right? But let's look at what's happening energetically, because all problems or all health things are a manifestation of some type of energetic imbalance, right? That's just the reality. And so I'm super excited to have someone that kind of lives on both ends of this spectrum today. I am, as you all know, I don't really like to read bios, right? But I am going to do a short intro and then I will bring our guest tonight onto the stage. You know that we're conversational. Feel free to drop questions in the chat as we are having our conversation tonight. Because it's, no fun if we're just sitting here telling you the things that we think you want to know, if they're actually things that you want to know. All right. So tonight I'm joined by Dr. Kamau Kokayi. His work sits at the intersection of all of the things I teach, right? The seen and the unseen, the physical and the energetic, the ancestral, the cellular. He is a Yale-trained medical doctor who has been practicing holistic and multidimensional healing for over 40 years. He's a certified acupuncturist, homeopath, bioenergetic practitioner, all of the things, and one of the founders of the Multidimensional Healing Collective, which I'll be speaking at tomorrow night. I forgot to put the link in my little banner, but I'll do that. I'm speaking at that tomorrow night. You can go to my page and see the flyer or anything. It's a $17 love donation if you're interested in joining that conversation. Great group of people. So hop on and join us. All right. So with that, I am going to bring Dr. Kamau, Dr. Kokayi up to the stage. Greetings. Welcome.
Greetings. Wow. Took me a minute to master the technology, but I'm here.
You are here. And I had full faith since we just went ahead and started. Thank you. So I gave a really kind of short introduction of you. Is there
Sure.
anything that you would like to offer? I always like to say, depending on the day we ask, what's on the top for us when somebody says, what do you do? Or tell us about yourself is a little bit different. So is there anything kind of that you would like to share with us about what you do or who you are?
Um, I would just say, like everybody else, you ask certain questions about life and trying to understand reasons for you being here and really to give more meaning to what you're doing. So when I found myself in the grips of modern medicine, and I would say really early on in my training, I just realized there was just profound limitations in what I was being shown. And in part, the limitations also reflected where I was at in terms of my own growth. But at the same time, I realized that this is just an outer shell that we're in, and everything is not going to be explained within a material basis, just in terms of matter. So that curiosity, let's say, I had two things that happened to me that I'll share in medical school, right? I'll give an example. One, you're examining the heart, and they teach you to put your hand right under the breast, the left side of the chest, and you're looking for what's called a point of maximal impulse. And when I did that, I felt like my hand was caught in this magnetic field. And like I'm looking up at the other students, like, does anybody feel this? What's going on? And of course, this relates to the whole energy field that the heart generates, and perhaps we've heard of toroidal fields, and maybe we can talk a little bit about that. And then the other thing that happened is I'm on the wards, and someone had just had a heart attack, and there's a step down unit where you monitor those patients more carefully. And I was a student, and I went in, and I'm talking to the patient who's just laying there. He's chilled out, and he says, "I'm going to die today." I'm like, okay. Um, I, apparently, from all the monitoring, it doesn't seem like that's the case and stuff. I had somebody else come in, and I went about my business checking on other people. But eventually, when I came back to him, and I just bent over him and just looked at him, and he turned to me and he said, "I'm gone."
Oh, wow.
And that was it, right? And I'm like, holy crap. Now he's hooked up to monitors, so everything starts blaring. It's a code, and everybody's rushing in with the crash carts. But I'm like, wait a second, there's something else going on here, right? And that kind of reflection, I've had any number of other things. I call them little breadcrumbs that were left that said, okay, there's something else. I can't just operate in this limited bubble that I'm being presented. And that's led to a whole unfoldment. And, part of that is, I guess, is going to be germane to our conversation, and just talking about, well, what is a larger picture than what we've been made to believe? And how does that impact us from day to day? And so much of that, I had the opportunity to travel in the African continent to do a documentary film on traditional African medicine, right? And just exposed to a lot of things, let's say. And then it's really the whole cosmology, or I would say cosmogony, that's actually behind everything, that there's a deeper understanding there. So while we're in the West, we see that everything is geared more toward materiality, biochemistry, biomechanics of the body. In the East, we're talking more about energetics, right? We're talking about chi and all of that. But when you get into African culture, you're really talking about relationship to consciousness. And I had some interesting experiences and conversations with traditional healers, and even people that are in the church there. So I'll stop there because I can ramble. So
Well,
you can help
let me
direct
ask
me.
you, prior to those experiences that you had in medical school, so one with the patient with the heart, and then the second one with the patient who told you that he was leaving and then left, had you had experiences, or had your awareness been situated in something that had to do with energy, right? Or up to that point, had you pretty much been
Sure.
science and science?
No, what happened, I was a martial artist in college, right? And I was a vegan at that point, and I was exposed to all kind of energetics just through martial arts. And I remember I had a sensei who was able to drill his finger into brick, right? And I'm like, and then we learned how to use energy, boards being broken on us and all kind of stuff. I'm like, wait a second. Now you take that into medical school, there I am at Yale Medical School. This is supposed to be like top, and there's no concept of energy. There's no concept of diet really at that point. We're talking about the late 1970s, right? So nobody is talking about these two major things, and I'm dealing with the general racial dynamic of being there and stuff. I'm like, God did not put all the answers here.
Mm,
So,
mhm.
I mean, I got what I could get. I took a year off and really began to delve into just other dynamics because there just had to be something else. And, you know, um, what happened, I guess what I was lucky is that I had a really good memory back then. So medical school was not challenging in that way. Right? So,
That is, I don't think there are very many people I've ever heard say that. So yes,
no.
we give thanks for good memories, right? And that
Right.
also probably my godfather once said to me, this was around like memorizing Odu, which are um
Mm,
these, long texts that
right.
you
Right.
as a priest. And he was like, people who are called to do this can remember them, right? He's
Mm,
like, because it's in their nature, right? So it's like
right.
literally, it just kind of unlocks, and then it. So I feel like part of that stuff, like when we go to medical school and we're like in it, and it's like, oh, I got
Yeah.
it. It's probably because in the past life, you actually probably were.
Well, I want to extend that idea because I feel like a lot of what I've done or come to understand is really remembering. It feels more like I'm remembering something than like, oh, this is really new, right?
Mhm.
Because it's really not new. It's already the presence, that energy is already there. It's
Yes.
just a matter of can you sense it and tap into it,
Yes,
right?
I love that. I love that. I do believe all things are already always in us. So I was reading, I don't remember now if I was reading something or if I was on your Instagram page, um, but somewhere in the materials that you have, I saw
Okay.
you talking about this idea of what we really suffer from is a consciousness
Hmm.
deficit disorder. And so, one, can you just tell us a little bit about what that means and
I
why?
love to speak on that because that is the heart of humanity's problem, so to speak, right? And if you think about energetically, if you think we can just use the chakras, right? So you have these seven basic chakras, and they connect to different energetic systems, different parts of us. And central to that is the fourth chakra that deals with the heart, right? Now, your heart really comes online about 22 days in terms of conception. What I mean by that, the heart is the first organ that's formed and it starts beating. That vibration, right, becomes what brings you literally online in terms of the larger cosmic, universe, in terms of brings you online as a persona, in terms of connecting. The heart, we think of it, and what I learned in medical school, of course, you're focused on the heart as a pump. But now, even in the 1990s, they realized that beat, right, that actually fluctuates. That has a vibrational fluctuation that, when healthy, it looks like a sine wave, meaning it looks like the basic vibrational pattern that constitutes different levels of energy matter throughout the universe in terms of this side of reality. So the question is that heart, you want it to vibrate in a particular way, right? Because that vibration is associated. Vibration is where information travels on these waves, what we're talking about. Our speaking now through, the internet, whatever. It's on waves. Our voice or the telephone is all on waves, right? Now, according to your ability to tune in at a certain vibrational level, right, will determine what you're actually sensitive and receptive to. So when we speak about the heart, we're talking about the heart being a portal to larger cosmic consciousness, right? So we associate heart with love. We associate it with just joy, with happiness, sympathy, and gratitude, right? So if a human being's vibration is not such that it can really resonate with that heart level, then your consciousness isn't at a place to really embrace the larger reality of who and what you are as a cosmic being, as a consciousness that's just placed in this vehicle. You're not there. You're still dealing more at an animal level, right? You're still dealing more that you are separate from any and everything, which is so far from the truth that's just shown over and over again in so many different ways. So when people are functioning at a at a level where they have this heart consciousness, I would call it deficit, or a consciousness deficit disorder to make it medical, right? Then your persona, your choices, your actions, are coming from a different place, right? They're coming from a place of separation and division, right? And so what you're going to create, what you're going to come up with, is more likely to be can be easily harmful to other people, to your environment, because there's no heart consciousness there, which connects you to a higher wisdom and understanding about what you're actually doing. So if you look at so much of what human beings have created and how destructive it is, it's a question of where is it actually coming from within our psyche per se, right? So am I I just want to make sure that I'm being clear here.
Yeah. So let me ask you this then. So just from what you're saying, from what I'm hearing, this idea that the heart is kind of the center of the being, right? We have this full seven chakra system, set more than seven chakras, but the
Right.
main seven chakras, right? And then this fourth is our heart space, which is the first part that brings us online, that pumping. And when it's healthy, I don't think you use the word healthy, but I'm gonna use the word healthy. When it's healthy, right? The vibration and the signals that it sends out is the thing that allows us to really understand our source consciousness, our connection to all things, and then kind of be in flow. What is interesting as you were saying that is when I teach the Akashic records, not in the beginning, but when we start, not like when I'm just introducing it to people, but like when we're really starting to kind of dive deep, and particularly when we are starting to move into using the records as a healing mechanism, where we talk about the connection, where we connect is at the heart, not the heart, not where we think of the heart is, right? But again, kind of that lower chamber, what would be the bottom part of the heart, and that is the connection to source, and that is how we're able to be in connection and channel, move energy and sense energy, and like that's the field that we should be operating from, as we're doing this healing work. So I just thought that was very interesting.
Right. So part of this is the more that we can make this real, meaning because this is beyond our five senses. When we talk about the heart is a chestahedron, which is a seven-sided geometrical structure that creates a toroidal field around it because of all the vortex of blood and everything flowing through it, right? Now, so what I'm saying is that the more that you can get a visual, right, the more that you can make this real within your own persona's consciousness, right, the more it allows you to touch that and to actually be in connection, right? So, so within that, a lot of my work will focus around the heart and how to open that up. And anybody would find it interesting if you go to Chat GPT and you just ask for how many, just to list all the emotional connections to the heart, things that we say, broken heart, hard hearted, it goes on, right? But it really reflects the vibrational state of a person. If you find that, you're really connected or certain statements resonate with you, it's like, how do you free yourself up from these little vibrational states that kind of block the flow, that actually block the ability for you to get in alignment because it's really the alignment, the heart energy, right, as that universal portal to align with the nervous system, the brain, right, so that your thoughts and the alignment is not about fear, because fear is the heart killer in that respect, right? It's about really aligning with that vibration that makes you more receptive to what it is that consciousness is here to do through you, right? To be receptive to that and not closed off. So
Is there an activity or is there a practice that you would say is just kind of a general baseline practice that people could do to, one, become into contact, connection, see that heart clearly?
that's a several part answer. Is yes, yes, there is, right? The reality is it's different for different people, right?
Mhm.
Because the first thing is, what are the qualities that you want this vessel to generate that's going to allow you to be open? So, what we want to do is move from doing into being, right? And a lot of that being is what helps you to be still, what helps you to resonate with whatever that vibrational state that really opens you up and allows you to connect. So, this is what's interesting in the human journey, because for some people, it's art. For some people, it's music. For some people, it's just being in nature, having certain plants and things around you. um, so one way to streamline that, of course, is through meditation,
Mhm.
because meditation you're is really conscious about being conscious, right? Meaning that you would just want to be still, right? And in that stillness, then according to how you're guided in the meditation or whatever it's set up to do, you will receive what it is that you need to receive, right? So when we have moments of synchronicity, intuition, um, inspiration, or even revelation. These are things where all of a sudden we've been opened up by whatever experience. So you want to create the conditions for that to happen. So you want to know, this is what people talk about, like when enough is enough and you need to just find your own peace.
Mhm.
In part, this is what they're referring to. Like, how can I just reboot my life and figure this out? So I hope that helps, because within meditation and within what I'm saying, there's so many different ways to actually connect. And that's what's beautiful.
Yes, and I love that, we're definitely not team cookie cutter answers over here, right? Recognizing that each individual soul is kind of rooted and wired differently. But then in that we all have the capacity to tap in to what our soul actually needs and what it wants. And part of that one is coming into awareness, right? That's always step one, coming into awareness. And then step two, setting the intention for the thing that we need. So, if someone were working through some type of issue, and this could be anything, right? This could be, I actually will give y'all a real example what just happened to me. Um, Yesterday, I think it was yesterday or today. What is time? Um, I had a really, like, out of nowhere, this like really, really intense pain come in my head, right? I do suffer from migraines. And so I know when like a
Mm,
migraine is coming, but this wasn't that, right? This was like something else. And I was like, okay, I don't know what's happening right now, but what we're not about to do is give into it, because I
mm,
had to take to school and we don't have time for this. So I took a moment and I dropped into what I call dropped into my breath. So, just take a moment, coming into breathing. And then I basically was like, okay, pain, why are you here? What is
mm.
happening? What do you need? Right? Because I
Right.
have to go about my day today. Like, what do you need to happen in this moment? Because I am not okay with how I'm feeling right now. And this is new for me, y'all. So I'm not gonna say like I've been doing this for forever. I think I used to do it and then got out of the practice of recognizing that all things is its own energy. Right. I say that all the time. I literally say everything is energy, but then I like didn't connect it with my own pain being energy. Anyway, so I connect. I'm like, hey, what's happening? We ain't got time. What are we doing? And it basically was like I had, I guess, overnight, like clenched up so tight, like I had, like basically I restricted and constricted my physical self so much that like it was now coming out in my head. And I just had to like do a little dance break this morning through the pain. And like that would seem counterintuitive to, if you're in pain, now you're going to dance it out. But I have rediscovered my love for dance. I know that also seems strange,
Wow.
dancer.
Wow.
But I realized that I had disconnected my own love for it, and I had framed it in like the thing that I give to others. It's the thing that I teach. It's the thing that, it's the thing that I direct, is this thing, but I had lost the connection for myself. So anyway, I'm on a tangent. Point is, I danced, which
Well,
made me
your 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 example brings out another point, because the idea of being at a heart conscious level is being in the world but not of it. The idea of keeping your heart as light as a feather, so that as stuff is happening, right, you're asking, what's the connection? What is this connected to? And you're giving yourself the freedom and the space to actually do that. Now, you doing that in pain, that's pretty good, because most people in pain, it's like, you're not really going to be open. And it's when you have to get help and stuff, right? But the idea that, of being able to step back and just wait for that answer to come in, right? That that is really fascinating, and I bring that up because that'll be a lot of what I have to do in working with people. Because people come with the external complaint, like I have the headache or whatever, and it brings to mind an example, a clinical example. I had a patient that had really bad migraines, right? Could not figure out what to do, manipulation, cranial sacral, acupuncture, homeopathy, and nothing's working. So I had to just sit back and just be still. Okay, what's this about? Right. And it turned out the answer came, have her do a past life regression. Right. And she did a past life regression with Yvonne Secreto, is really awesome, in terms of his skill. And what happened is, in a previous life, right, this woman had been shot in the head by her husband because he thought that she was pregnant with somebody else's baby. I mean, the craziness that human beings do, right? So once that was cleared up, like energetically, he's talking through that, those headaches stop. Those headaches stop. But how do you get that information? Because I looked at medicine going from holistic to alternative to complementary and alternative to integrative to functional. So this is why I started the Multidimensional Healing Collective, because there's just too many folks that require something beyond just the energy. The whole connection with consciousness has to be recalibrated, which is why the Akashic Records is so fascinating. If people learn to use that or to harness that, as a way to get more guidance and understanding, so that they have opportunity to reboot themselves, like here and now. So,
So let's talk a little bit about the Multidimensional Healing Collective. And if you were not here at the start, I am speaking tomorrow. So today is Tuesday, tomorrow night is Wednesday at 8:30 at the Multidimensional Healing Collective. My topic is As Above, So Below. So talking about some of my favorite things, right? Souls and synchronicities and patterns and all of that stuff. So if you're interested in that, love to have you join me tomorrow. But go ahead and tell us a little bit about the collective.
Basically, I have to even remember. I mean, I think a lot of this initially had come together because Yvonne Secreto already had a group of folks that were working with her. And I just shared the idea more about, where you come together as a group, right? And begin to look at energetically what is out of balance in terms of a person, right? And taking people on an experience of exploring their relationship to consciousness, exploring their energy, right? And then having a big, we can call it a ritual or ceremony where everybody focuses on them, right? And then we all, for an hour, we just do work on that person. And then everyone shares what they've come up with afterwards. And it's just been an amazing thing because largely we've been working on ourselves, and just clearing our own selves so we can be better vessels than to actually help people to heal. So um, it really came about through that just coming together and then exploring. And I'm sure there are pieces that I'm leaving out, but it's like, but right now, what happens is once a month, we have somebody like yourself that will come in and speak to the different topics, right? Two, every other week, we have the Oasis of Healing, which I want to explain something about, which I'll do in a minute, I guess. And then if we have someone that wants to do a CTE, right, a consciousness transformation experience, right, we'll host that, and work on a person. All of this is done, it's online, right? So, and that is a little bit different as well, right? But I'll stop there. I mean, there's a lot more, you know. Um, yeah,
I'm gonna just add, or just again, because I don't know if people got the impact of what the Healing Collective is. And sometimes I know I have clients who will come to me with particular things, and I'll say, "Hey, I know this group that does all of these things." Typically, if someone comes to me for health issues, right? Because again, not a doctor. And past that, I do recognize the layeredness sometimes of our health issues, right? And so sometimes
mm,
someone comes to me with a health issue, and I'm very clear, or I could very clearly detect, similar to the issue with Yvonne, who did the past life regression and was like, nope, this is the source and this is the cause of this, right? But oftentimes, sometimes even in that, the nervous system has become so wrapped up and wired in the conditioning that is, happening now, right? So
right,
sometimes, even though we can clear something energetically, the nervous system still stays locked into the patterns that it was
mm,
already rooted in. Sometimes we can't bring the subconscious or unconscious mind online to the present because it kind of keeps looping back to the past, right? So there
right,
are all of these ways where sometimes it's like, okay, I know that I can give you the underlying thing. I know that I can clear this energy for you, but I think that you need kind of a fuller, multi-pronged approach. And that's what the multi-healing dimensional collective does. They do this multi-pronged approach to healing.
right. Because a lot of people, folks are showing up with stage 3, stage 4 cancer, or you have cancer that recurs. Well, why is it? Why do these stem cells keep coming back? Right? What would it means you're not getting deep enough into the energy organization of a person. So a lot of times when we're preparing people for the CTE, I mean, you've seen many of our clients will come to you for an Akashic reading and stuff because we want that information is actually useful to help guide them in what's needed to release stuff. So, the superficial level in which healthcare is being generated, it's coming out of, it's not coming from a heart consciousness level, even though people may be well meaning in what they're trying to do. So it doesn't mean that you can't get help, that you shouldn't take your medication or anything. But the question is that for the rest of your life? I mean, is there any other option? Is there any other way to heal? I mean, we can talk about detox, supplements, nutrition, but think about this. You got more bacterial cells and viruses in your body than you have human cells. Your mitochondria that generates energy is a bacteria. All of these kingdoms, all of this lives together within a bioenergetic field. So, for instance, during COVID, I didn't lose any clients in COVID, right? In fact, I'm saying, look at what you guys are doing to this virus. It's going to mutate. The virus wants to survive, right? So, what is it about a person's energetic system now that's so out of alignment? What has been created that's going to really, make people susceptible to this, right? And then, the materiality around medicine and vaccines and everything, it's just totally out of control. And, you don't have to be a doctor to be aware. You can just watch the people are suffering as a result. But anyway, let me stop because that's a whole direction there. Right. Mm.
Sorry, thank you. I don't know if do y'all hear the back, or do you hear the background noise?
I can't hear anything.
Okay. People on
I'm
YouTube,
just,
y'all hear? My daughter's trying to wash the dishes. I just told her to wait until tomorrow, and she gave me the side eye. But if y'all can't hear it, then she can keep going. Okay. Go ahead, Aya. And what's interesting, you said something very specific, and Homeschool Mama Magic had typed in the chat a little bit earlier that she had been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. She's healing herself, but because she said, I will not be taking meds for the rest of my life. Right. And that's what you see. Like you said, what are you going to do? Take meds for the rest of your life? So I thought that was very, and the reality is, I find, or I think, sometimes people like look at things as like an either or, right? It's like, I either have to believe Western medicine, and like, if I do something other than that, then I'm like, I don't trust the system, or I don't do this. And, my own personal story, my dad, career military. And there is an ingrained belief in authority, when you kind of come through those systems and you've been in them for over 30 years, right? So you don't challenge authority. If the authority says this is the thing, then that's the thing. And so when he was in his struggle with his health, he and I would go back and forth because I was like, no, like, we do not just listen to what they say. They are not the end of it. There are other things that are at play. It was very interesting. But to see that,
yeah, I'm laughing because my father was actually a general, right? And I remember like frankly blowing the bugle in the morning just to get us up and stuff, right? But at the same time, my mom's was such an opposite energy that it really gave me the space to explore what I wanted to explore, you know. And as we move more into that divine feminine energy becoming more prominent, right? I think we've talked about like where the brothers at, where the brothers that are really embracing this consciousness, because there's so much toxic male energy that's been put out there that it's something that it just takes constant work, on individuals' part, to just release yourself from that, but also bring your own masculinity to another level, but really informed in a different way, right? Because not everybody's going to be an alpha male. And if you're an alpha male, that testosterone is going to go down by the time you're 50 or 60. What you going to do then? you got to figure out some other strategies. Oh my goodness.
New facts for me. Okay, thank you. Yes, testosterone drops. I want to circle back really quickly, as I don't know if this is a real fact or not. But people say, or I've heard, that like cardiovascular issues, heart disease are like one of the most prevalent issues in Black Americans. Do you think that is that true?
Yeah, I mean, come on, heart disease, cancer, and for men, prostate cancer, breast cancer. I mean, cancer is almost hitting the point where, first of all, you get cancer throughout your life, but your immune system is able like to back it up and stuff. But then at a certain point, you're overwhelmed by physical and emotional toxins, right? Your body is like, okay, you know. So we're talking about numbers like 50%. Cardiovascular disease is still number one, but hypertension is looked at as one disease, but it's many because there's different pathways to it. So again, there's a surface. What is that blood pressure? Everybody's blood pressure is not supposed to be 120 over 80. Some of y'all would fall out if your blood pressure was 120 over 80, right? So then it's a question of, well, what are the different types? And this is where you need an energetic based system to begin to understand all the chemical changes that come up, like calcium channel blockers, for instance, for blood pressure. Um, it's the idea of relaxing the the muscles around the blood vessels, right? Well, yeah, magnesium is a natural way to do that. It may not be as strong as amlodipine or nifedipine, right? But then there are other things that you can do. You have, breathing, right? There's an FDA approved system of breathing called Respirate, right? To lower blood pressure because you can accomplish this vasodilatation, this relaxation through breathing. So by understanding the mechanism, like some people, if they lose 20 pounds, their blood pressure is going to be normal. You know,
Mhm.
it depends. And it's trying to understand, even at that level of the persona, like what is the nature of the problem that you have. Now, it can get deeper when we start looking at just, hypertension in a certain communities of people and what's happened and just the role of fear over generation after generation and what that does in terms of then the chemical flow in the body from the kidneys, so but everybody, depending on where they're at, will need something a little bit different. And it's really figuring out that mix when people are confronted, with health. The time isn't like you run in and you're told you have cancer, then all of a sudden it's like this. No, you want to take some steps ahead of time. So,
With
um,
that, though, you have was it the third opinion?
right. So I've put together something called the third opinion because usually the second opinion is going to be most like the first opinion. It's just going to be a different specialist. But the third opinion, I get to weigh in from, the vantage point of looking at the body from a metaphysical standpoint, an energetic standpoint. And I might tell you to do some of the same things that are recommended, but I can give you a different perspective in terms of how to look at what's going on, how to steer your way through something. Because unfortunately, doctors try to coerce patients into doing things by fear, out of fear. And so part of the reaction is when you're in that state, one, on a certain level, you don't trust because you know the person is just trying to make you fearful, right? But at the same time, you are fearful, right? Because you don't really know. So the third opinion is to try to put things in a larger perspective, in terms of what are your options if you have chronic kidney disease, if you have hypertension, if you have cancer, if you have, we mentioned rheumatoid arthritis, if you have an autoimmune disease, how does chronic inflammation and leaky gut, contribute to that? How do emotional traumas and shock, actually affect the body's intelligence? And literally it turns on itself and stuff. So how do you work at these other levels to correct the problem? And I want to bring up something that in terms of a tool that I'm using in terms of appreciating how consciousness plays itself out. And there's a concept I'm developing called dispersive networks. I don't even know if I'm saying it right, but let me try to break that down. Um, if you think about consciousness like trees, right? Trees are actually all connected, right? Underground, the roots, There's an intelligence that energy moves through different networks, right? But there might be hubs, but the energy is dispersed in a particular way. The same thing with the nervous system. It's a not dispersed, it's a distributed, it's a distributed system, right? So consciousness is distributed in terms of different things have different functions within the nervous system, right? Consciousness works through the internet, through even like blockchain. We're talking about distributed networks where everything is not centralized, right? So the idea, though, is every individual represents a particular hub of consciousness. Now, you can be a little hub or you can be a big hub. Or if you understand what you're here to do, you can come together with other people that are resonating and vibrating in the same way. And you can put together something that is really significant. So we see that to a degree when we start talking about different cultures, because cultures are a reflection of consciousness that's cultivated and related to the environment in a particular way. So those cultures are unique to wherever they're located at. But right now, the hub that human beings need to develop, and this is something that I really worked on and thinking about going back to I had a not-for-profit in the early 2000s, the Global Healing Network. The idea of creating this conscious stream of love, a vibration that's so strong that it just encircles the planet so that the vibration and the light that that brings begins to dissolve and melt away some of these the craziness that's going on, right? Now, people will say, well, that's like pie in the sky stuff. But when you look at the studies around meditation and the impact that when people come together can meditate relative to crime in the community, any number of things. And there are different events and things that have been held, right? What I'm saying in terms of at least for my work is really creating a strong hub of that love vibration. So the oasis of healing, what we are doing is creating that place where people can actually feed off of that vibration. When I say feed off, I'm talking about resonate and then entrainment. Just like grandfather clocks in a room, they begin to entrain. So when you take that energy out, when you become that affirmation for love yourself in terms of your energy, you're going to impact things around you. And I think that is what's needed. That's a conversation I have when I go into the woods and hug my favorite tree. you know, it's just feeling that connection. It needs to happen.
Mhm. And and I think like when we look at things like they'll have like world, I'm completely making up the name of these days, but y'all will get the point, right? They have like World Peace Day, right? Where
Right.
everybody to come together at this time and to do this thing. But the idea is to put this energy out into the world, which will um squash the lower vibrational energies, right? There's this theory that basically higher vibration will always win out eventually. So if we can get enough energies connected to the higher vibration, then the lower vibrations become entrained to the
Well,
higher vibration.
let me give a real good example of this, right? And this is one of the things that really inspired me. I'm remembering around the Multidimensional Healing Collective. I was just sitting, taking a trip. I was in San Diego. I was living in California and happened to watch on the TV, and they had this thing called Miracle in Manchester, right? And Miracle in Manchester was citing the fact that this young man who was in high school had a really bad brain tumor and he wasn't doing well. Okay. And what happened is the whole school came out, right? And they're sitting on the bleachers, and you can look this up. There are pictures of it called Miracle in Manchester. And they did three things that made a difference, right? One, everybody had red on, right? Two, everybody held out and pointed to him, right? And 3, they all said the same prayer. That boy's tumor disappeared in like 5 days and stuff. So what I was watching was a celebration 10 years later where he was in some cancer hospital giving out computers. I'm like, wait a second, y'all missed something here, right? Because there was intentionality was the first thing, and then is harnessing the right vibration and frequency, right? Both the power of the word, the color, and just the direction and the focus was enough to make a difference. And that, so if so within that quote unquote miracle, there's an understanding that can be reproduced, right, on any number of levels. But from a health standpoint, that really stood out.
I love that. And that's something, I want to say like small groups of people can get
Mm.
together and do, right? Oftentimes I think we feel like things like this are so big or so outside of us, or it's like we have to be invited to this thing, right? What do they say? Where two or more gathered, right?
I've had guests on the radio that have shared that. That like this one woman, she had rectal cancer. They kept putting off for the surgery. A group got together and with intentionality, there's even this Greg Braden tape where you see the monks are chanting away this woman's gallbladder cancer, and you see it on a screen, on an ultrasound screen. It's just slowly shrinking. So they did the same thing with her. That tumor was gone, right? By the time they came back, the surgeon said, "I've never seen a colon so clean." so, so, so this is a power that we have, right? This is a power that we can cultivate, right? By learning to be still, by harnessing intention, to be able to actually feel energy. So I love people like my friend Jeffrey Noble. They have that energy or Reiki, but they're in touch with their energy. They feel it. They can feel the field. And it's just so awesome. I said, if I was in medical school for 4 years, I should have had 4 years of Qigong training while I'm there. You know what I'm saying? And not just, all the intellectual stuff. But anyway.
So a few things popped up. When you just said that, another thing my godfather said was to me from his teacher, he was like, he taught me a lot of things and he said a lot of things. Some things I agreed with, some things I didn't. He said, but the piece of information that he gave me that I found to be most successful, mind, this is my spiritual godfather, that I found to be most successful was for me to take Qigong. He was like, because learning energy and understanding energy in that way has allowed me to do so much in so many other areas that had I only focused on this, like I wouldn't have been able to tap into. And I think that brings me to like, when I'm always talking about, I know I sound like a broken record, y'all, but it's because I do believe like, if you can really lock in your brain, right? One, that you are not separate, right? That you have the capacity and the ability of source running through you at any given moment, as long as you acknowledge that you have that energy and that capacity, and that everything is energy. And because everything is energy, it is all transmutable, right? What happens sometimes is we get into the passive role of,
Right.
this thing is happening. So, oh, wait, I have to let it take its course. No, stand in your power, right? And if that means we need to get 2 or 3 to help us bolster our power when we don't have it in us, then that's what we do, right? People have like those nighttime watch visuals and prayer circles, and the people like that is real.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That wasn't folk magic. That wasn't something that was psycho. That like those were real impacts. But what happened is we got sold the bill of goods that made us think so that power wasn't within us, that we didn't have access to it, and that we have to outsource everything for our own healing. And it's just not the reality.
The word of outsourcing everything in terms of our own healing, I really appreciate that. And I so appreciate your delivery because you keep it light. This is light, matter of fact. This is a conversation. This is beautiful, You keep it light and real.
Yes. And just y'all, I know I said it earlier. If you have questions or something you want to bring up, go ahead and drop it in the chat. We are getting to our hours. I like to be respectful of people's time. I did drop earlier in the chat. Let me just drop it again, though. Maybe sort of. Yep. There is the link if you are interested in coming to join me tomorrow. This is the coming across your screen now. It's their website, the Multidimensional Healing Circles website and email address. They always, like he said, mentioned they have the Healing Oasis. You can get in touch with them for larger services and goods. And I'm not trying to rush us off. I just want to make sure that I get this, that I get this
Yeah,
in.
I was gonna say anybody that wants to find out more about my actual medical practice, right? I mean, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, right? I'm also in Los Angeles, right? But it's kokayihealth.com. It's my last name, kokayihealth.com. You can find out more about my work in that respect.
Yes. Thank you. And I'll make sure I add that to the description that you'll see in the YouTube description. So I'll make sure that I add his thing there. Let me just make sure that I covered everything that I wanted to cover in myself and this while I'm going through my notes. Do you have anything that you feel we missed or that you wanted to offer?
Do I have anything? Okay.
I know.
I don't know if there's anything that I miss. I'm just hoping that people take a deeper dive into themselves and looking at what's possible, what resources they have available. You know, um, you know, I would ask folks definitely check out the Oasis. We're every other Wednesday. I mean, there's just so much. Right now, there's so much that is being revealed to folks about just the falsities of what's been presented to us in terms of how things work and how things run, that you really have to like open your eyes and get busy. And you definitely want to figure out how to use AI in whatever it is that you're doing and stuff. But I think there's some momentous changes. We are in a fire horse year, so I do definitely acknowledge the astrological connections and what that means. So it is, you want to learn how to ride that horse, right? Which means that you want to be true to your path and what it is that you're doing and get, work with people to get the tools and assistance that you need, right? For yourself, your family, and just for community and humanity in terms of where we're at. So that's what I would share. I'm blessed to, still be able to do the work that I do after 40 years of literally a private practice. And I'm enjoying where I'm at right now in terms of what, I've learned and how it's just sitting, and flowing right now. So I can leave with that.
And I did not mention, y'all, I have been remiss. Dr. Kokayi also has a radio show.
Right.
That's actually how he and I met. I was a guest on his radio show that airs in New York a few years ago, I think. And I did it, and I just did a recent episode that aired last week, Tuesday. So I'll also put that link in the description. Y'all should go and listen to it. But he has a radio show. Can you tell them where they can find it, the name of it?
Sure. I'm on Pacifica Radio, WBAI .org, 99.5 FM. I'm on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Dr. Davis here has been a guest numerous times, right? And I definitely circle back to people because, whose work that I know and really appreciate because I know that they're growing. And her book is fantastic. You really show the book. So I interviewed her about this. Mind you, I only got through about a third of it, but it was so just delicious and just really showing Yoruba cosmogony and just linking it to her work, with the Akashic, records, and just really just showing the genius of African people in terms of how they how they just organize their understanding of consciousness and our experience here. So it is a must read.
Yes, we do have one question. Black Magic Mike said, you had mentioned using AI, right, for people to kind of use AI. And he said, why and how should we use AI in this context? He finds it challenging to trust.
Okay. One, you can always fact check something, but if you need information about something, I mean, rather than Googling stuff and trying to look stuff up, if you just want to get information, if, for instance, I do a lot of work around ADHD, and just asking AI, well, what are scholarly articles that feature botanical that could be useful with people that have, ADHD, and talked about saffron. So then I can go research saffron, and I see all these other articles that are actually coming up. And I'm like, yeah, that's something you can use. Right. So it's a tool, right? It's an extender. It'll save you some work, some leg work, right? I mean, just like when I came into school, there were no computers. We were typing, and you had this whiteout that you could use to white stuff out, right? And I'm like, nobody was using no computers, but now I can't keep up with all the technology. It used to be I could unpack the computer, set it up, and I was fine. But now it's like, but and now AI is just taking that to another level. I don't even Google. I'll just go right to AI and I'll ask. And part of it is your comfort level. You know, you work with it and you'll see, right?
Yeah. And I think that the important thing here is, like you mentioned, to verify, right? So let's not just, wholesale believe 100% comes out just because it came out, right? We can now take what we got and then use that as the jumping off point. Okay. So thank you. And find it gives wrong answers quite frequently and confidently. Thanks again. And maybe try Black Magic Mike. I'm not sure if you're using like because I too love me are we training AI to replace us? I think that is a person. What's that? I think that is a more like a personal moral question. I think that AI has been around forever, regardless of the name that we're calling it right now and the way that it is showing up in society right now. It has been around for a while. We have been using it for a while, and it will continue to be here, right? And so we always have the option to abstain, because freedom of choice is our greatest gift in this lifetime, right? So we
Right,
always have the freedom to abstain. And you also have the option to not be on board when everything else is rolling, right? So one of the things that my kids' school did it happened during COVID, because they go to private school, and it was technology free. So basically, depending on your age group is where they introduce technology. So prior to COVID, they were tech free K through 5. And then
right,
in
right,
6th
right.
grade, they would introduce, like, the teacher would have, kind of the computer and the blackboard and all of that stuff. And then 7th, 8th grade, they would start working on personal devices to prepare them for high school. When COVID happened, that had to switch, right? Because now everybody has to be at home and all of these things. And then coming back from that, because now they had integrated it, you can't now take it back, right? You can't go from the students are able to hear and they've learned how to use these class networks, and now you're like, nope, going back to this typewriter, right? It's just crazy. It can't happen. So you have to consistently adjust and adapt to what's there. So then what they had to do was, now they teach them how to use AI responsibly. Pivot to, my daughter had to transition to public school because the private school is K through 8. So she is now in public school. Help us all. But at her school, because they said, look, this is the wave of the future, right? This is what's happening. We're not going to fight against this. It doesn't make sense for us to be mad when the students come back with something. No, we have to teach them how to work with the tool. We have to teach them how to use it as a reference, how to use it as a resource, how to use it ethically, how to use it not to replace their own mental capacity, right? But how to start it as the jumping board. So then she gets to high school, where the whole mental process around how they relate to students in public school is just ridiculous, right? It's like they approach students from the belief that the students are somehow inferior or wrong or trying to cheat or like all of these things, which is a complete contradiction to everything that she's been taught her whole life. So now she's there and she's like, Mommy, we can't even use Grammarly. She's like, I just want to turn in a paper that is grammatically correct. And she was like, okay, that's not a problem. So then she tried to access the dictionary because she was like, okay, if I can't use, let me go and look. She can't even access the dictionary because they're so anti like these sources that are going to give all of those things. And I say all of this to say, that was my long rant. Clearly I'm passionate about this, right? But I say all of this to say is that a tool is a tool is a tool, right? The gun is dangerous in one person's hand and it's safe in somebody else's hand, right? It is how you use it, it's what your mentality is around it, it's the safeguards and the ways that you put it out into the world. So that's my 2 cents that you didn't ask me for about it. Are you talking to us, Dr. Kokayi? I can't hear you. I don't know, because you're not muted. So I don't know why. Mm-mm. I know, right? I read lips. That's it. Wow, I don't know. Yep. We're about to wrap up, so it's cool. That's crazy though. So well, while if you can get it back, I'll just do our closing. So thank y'all for joining us tonight. Again, it's Dr. Kamau Kokayi. You can find him and learn more about his practice at kokayihealth.com. He does offer the service called Third Opinion. You do not have to be in North Carolina. You do not have to be in North Carolina in order to use that Third Opinion option, right? You can contact him. Also, the Multidimensional Health Collective is available. Thank y'all for joining. I don't have any other announcements. Until next time, remember you deserve to live a life that lights you up from the inside out. Like, subscribe, and share, y'all. Peace.